Hey guys, so today we are going to be talking about a period of history known as the Neolithic Revolution. So I want to start by having you take a look at this image here on the screen. So I'm going to have you reflect for a second. I want you to see what you notice, see what are the people doing in the picture, write down like 4 or 5 details that you notice that stand out to you, especially in comparison to what we have already talked about in terms of prehistory. So I'll give you a minute here to do that, and then we'll come back. Okay, so let's talk about the Neolithic Revolution and what it really is. So first of all, the term Neolithic Revolution puts our time on this, right? So this happens during the New Stone Age, right? So at the tail end of the Paleolithic and Mesolithic eras, where we are moving from a period of foraging and hunting and gathering to a period of permanent settlements, which is exactly what this is. This is a shift from a nomadic lifestyle, from hunting and gathering, to more settled farming and food production. So that's what this is really all about. It's about food production. You can kind of see this as the beginning of like the domestication of animals and plants and humanity even. So this began around the year 10,000 BC. Obviously, we can't put an exact date on it because it happened in a lot of places all over the world in very similar time frames. So we talk about the Fertile Crescent, which is Mesopotamia, the Nile River Valley in Egypt, the Indus River Valley in China or in India, the Yellow River Valley in China, but even in Mesoamerica and Mexico, Central America, um, where almost simultaneously, mankind stopped moving around and started settling. So this is important because it's really the beginning of permanent settlement and civilization, right? So there's some causes. Why did this happen? So during the years leading up to this, the Earth is in what's called an ice age, where basically the global temperatures are much colder, food is much harder to find. As the ice age starts to end, the climate gets a little bit warmer, becomes a little bit easier to farm, to produce food. You don't have to go searching for it. But it also is a population increase. So as people start having more babies and the population gets bigger, that leads to an increase in food demand. And quite frankly, hunting and gathering isn't cutting it. They're not able to feed all of the people in their group. So we start seeing people settling down and producing food themselves, right? So as we start settling down and developing these new farming communities, obviously there are some key developments that happen as a result. So climate changes after the ice age and creates these conditions. People begin domesticating plants and animals, inventing new tools, and settling in these permanent communities, right? So in terms of agriculture, we're seeing the beginnings of developing these what we call cereal crops. So again, think about what cereal is made of: wheat, barley, rice, maize. Maize is corn that only exists in the Americas. So again, we're seeing like all over the world, people are starting to genetically breed new crops. They realize that like, hey, if I like crossbreed this crop with this crop, I get a bigger and better result, right? So we see new developments in agriculture. We also start seeing the domestication of certain animals. The very first animal to ever be domesticated was dogs. So we actually domesticated dogs while still hunting and gathering. We realized that they help us hunt a little bit better, but we also realized that dogs can do other things. Then we start domesticating animals that we can use for food and shelter, right? Sheep. We don't really eat a lot of sheep. I mean, we do, but not as much. But we can use the wool. Goats are meat, but also milk. Cattle, pigs, chickens, all of these, like what we think of as domesticated animals today, we start to domesticate those. We also start to invent new technologies. So, in addition to some of the stone tools that we are seeing, we also start seeing pottery and weaving being invented. Pottery was invented as a way of food storage, right? Because if you think about a big, like, terracotta pot, When you're moving around, you don't want to take that with you. But when you are settling in one place, pottery becomes important. Weaving helps you make new clothing and new shelters, tents, things like that. And then, of course, we start seeing permanent settlements. So one of the oldest permanent settlements, the most and the best preserved Neolithic village that we have is called Catalhuac. I probably said that wrong, but that's as close as we're going to get. It is located in modern day Turkey. It was occupied from around 7,500 BC to 57 BC. And it gives us a lot of insight into what like these early human settlements and social life were like. So the houses were made with mud bricks. The walls and roofs were shared. People probably walked on the rooftops, and we know this because they were flat and there are no streets. The homes were built very close together with entrances through the roofs using ladders. It's estimated about 5 to 8,000 people probably lived there. They farmed wheat and barley, had domesticated animals such as sheep. They still hunted and gathered, so that didn't go anywhere. They just didn't follow the herds. Homes had a lot of built-in storages, and there was a lot of art. Wall paintings decorated a lot of these homes, and some even had burials under their floors, which suggests some kind of religious practices, maybe some sort of shrines and symbols that related a lot to nature and fertility. And it really shows how life is starting to change, right? From nomadic life to permanent farming villages. It offers evidence of social organization, division of labor, spiritual beliefs. So I'm going to show you a short little video clip here that looks at what a recreation of what this may have looked like, what this particular settlement may have looked like, which I think will give you a good picture of some of these ancient societies.
Catalhoyuk was the first major settlement in world history. It was created about 9,500 years ago in today's Turkey. During the flowering period, up to 2,500 people lived their close-to-close houses, which were only accessible over the roof. A practical architecture, because large windows and doors have heated up the interiors too much. There were no streets and places. Life played primarily on the roofs. It was apparently an equal society. There were neither palaces nor temples. Marketplaces and workshops were also missing. Each house community managed independently, took care of animal husbandry, and produced tools. The residents also had to deal with typical problems of civilization, including the disposal of waste and feces. But overall, the community was probably stable because Catalhoyuk remained inhabited for 2 millennia. People not only lived in the houses, they also celebrated ritual festivals there. This testifies to large murals with colored hunting scenes. Presumably, the representations should be remembered on initiation councils or cultic hunts.
So if you look at some of these images here, you can see a little bit about what they were talking about in the video, as well as some of the things that I was mentioning. So some of this is actual artifacts, some of this is just recreation, but you can see how close these houses were. Again, no streets, people lived in very close proximity. There is evidence of some art that relates to the spiritual in some way. So you can see some of it in the bottom picture, as well as in this image on the left or on the right side of your screen here. That shows a seated woman. This we think is some sort of ritual, but they had this art and architecture in addition to all of these amazing feats that we see. So obviously, the Neolithic Revolution had huge impact on the way we as humans live, right? And some of those things were for positive, some of those things not so much. The consequences were pretty variety, right? So as these complex societies start to form, good things come out of it, but so do some problems. So, in terms of the positive outcomes, so first of all, as there is a surplus of food, so as we are growing and producing more food, it means that the population can grow. The more food there is, the more people it can feed, so the more people are born. And so we see kind of human society starting to expand and grow as a result. We also, as a result of this, get a rise of permanent settlements, villages, and cities, the foundations of what is going to become world civilization, right? We also see a something called job specialization. So not everybody has to farm in a society like this. There's enough food that people can start to do other things and start to do other jobs. When you're hunting and gathering, everybody has to do their part or you're going to starve. But when you're in a farming community, there's a surplus of food. So people can specialize in like tool making, like being a blacksmith, pottery and weaving, being a merchant, buying and selling goods, working in government or religious roles, being scribes. All of these different jobs start to form as a result of the Neolithic Revolution, which of course also leads to cultural developments, things like more organized and complex religions, art, trade, writing. The development of writing systems forms out of this. But not everything is good, right? In terms of negative outcomes, we also see social inequality. Some people own more than other people. That's just the way it happens. So we see the rise of social classes and the rich versus the poor. People are on a level, like rather than all equal as they were under hunting and gathering. Next is diseases start to spread. So a lot of our diseases that we get actually come from being around animals. So things like the flu, that comes from animals, right? So domesticating animals means we're living in close proximity to these animals, which means the diseases spread to humans. And then those humans are in close proximity and the diseases spread to each other. When you can't dispose of your waste in sanitary ways, it leads to the spread of diseases. Fleas and other parasites start to live amongst us, mosquitoes, all of these things lead to a widespread of diseases. And last but not least, we do some see environmental impacts, things like deforestation, depleting nutrients in soil, all of this damage that comes from farming. So when we talk about the Neolithic Revolution settling and farming, sure, there are some really good things that came out of it, but there were also some things that maybe weren't so good. Some people will argue that settling down was the worst mistake humans ever made. I don't know if I believe that, but we're going to study it in class and see if we can figure it out together. So I'll see you next time. Bye bye.